Welcome to the second episode of the MP3Cast, a show where three friends talk about an album one of us picked, any genre, any year of release, and we share our thoughts. I'm Johnny, with me is Scaffo.
Hey.
And Patricio.
Hello.
Alright, so this is TJ, you picked the album, Scaffo, so can you give us a little bit of background about it?
Sure thing. This week we're going to be going over Floxes' self-titled album. It was their first full-length album released in 2008, and on release it received many Album of the Years. It was very well received, and they grew in popularity and got the album deal largely from piracy of their first two EPs, interestingly enough. They released this album about 2 months after their second EP was released, and they were on tour for both of those releases. They already had the album recorded in a combination of a recording studio for a couple songs, and then people's apartments, the lead singer's mother's basement. So there's a lot of different sounds going on in this album from that.
All right. Well, I didn't know any of that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Kind of colors makes sense with some of the thoughts I had about the album, but we'll get to that.
All right.
So, let's start off with the first part of the album that you experience, the album art. So,
all right.
This one has a lot going on.
Oh, it definitely does. And I think this album art is really good considering the overall tone of the album. The album has a lot of really upbeat, happy tunes going on instrumentally throughout. And you can kind of see that going on with the art style. The art style is normally this will be depicting a lot of nice scenes. But that being said, there's a lot of tragedy going on. You see dying livestock, someone getting buried, people drowning. It's really dark for what it is.
I feel like this shows the complexity of the stories you hear on the album. It's like a medieval village, which lends a good setting, prepares you for what you're going to hear. And then each person on the cover has their own story and something going on with them that's completely unique, and it's pretty easy. Not easy to figure out, but you can tell everyone has something complex going on.
And when it's all thrown together like that, it looks like a kind of chaotic beauty in a way. And you see fire and water, those are like the opposite elements for sure. But also you've got a lot of sand, that being earth. And there's a lot of nature descriptions in this album as a whole. Talks about snow and pastures and such. So this is really a good representation of the whole thing. I actually didn't look at this until after I listened to the album, which made it make more sense. Yeah, I just happened to look over it, but looking at it again afterwards, you can see where it all comes from.
Yeah, I do feel like this album art is spectacular as a representation of the album as a whole.
Someone put a lot of time into it too.
Definitely. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's
like a painting.
Yeah.
And I like how their name also, sorry, one last thing. I like how their name is just thrown in the top right-hand corner. It's not like big flash across all of it. It's just, and that's their name, but it's also the album. There's no parental advisory either, I think, because I don't think they swear on this album at all.
Yeah, they don't actually.
So that's not very common.
I hadn't noticed that at all.
Okay.
All right. Well, with that said, let's start going through the album song by song, saying what we think. The first song on the album is Sun It Rises.
Let's have our
the
person who chose it.
Expert. All right.
There you go.
So, this song I feel like is a nice opening track. It's got kind of a nice little slow build-up, and the crescendo in the middle is really, really nice. It does kind of set you up for what the album has in store as far as rhythmic tones, since it does hit all the slower stuff as well as the more intense and cacophonous things that will come later on.
Yeah. I liked the acapella start. I feel like it lends a lot of setting, which is a theme throughout this album. It's really set in a specific place and time, except for one song, but we'll get to that.
Definitely.
And I feel like it really sounds like this could just be like a village choir at the start of it with the red squirrel in the morning part.
Mm-hmm.
It's not overly polished and it feels rough, but in a good way, like personal.
It does definitely feel rough to a degree. I think the pretty opening guitars kind of remind me of like a Western movie. And there's a book called As I Lay Dying, and in the movie adaptation, it actually has a very similar bass line to this. And the vocals at times in this song in particular are the vocal point, but they're also used as instrumentation, just the layering of it, which you hear throughout the whole album.
Yeah.
And honestly, the lyrics in this are quite simple, but it complements the album art because it's more trying to paint a picture with the song and the words together rather than tell a story at this point. And they do that later on, but yeah, at this point, it's more just giving you the, like TJ said, the intro of what this album is going to be.
Yeah. I noticed immediately right when I started this track that the vocals were really low in the mix and were not meant to be focused on after that intro.
They were low for sure,
yeah,
for the most part.
They really do a lot on this album play with the different levels of vocals in the mix.
I also appreciate how they use acoustic guitars, but it also sounded like electric guitars too. Which
they have that little overdrive section.
But they make it sound like an acoustic guitar still. It's just with that, you know.
It stuck out to me as an electric. I don't know if I agree with that, but I was surprised when I heard that at first because I expected this to be almost like a period piece where they limited themselves. I don't know a lot about folk music, so I thought maybe this would be like they limited themselves to music to sounding like it could have been made in the medieval times, you know. But then
19 medieval.
Hey, I was gonna say 19th century before I realized how stupid that was. It's still wrong, but it's slightly
1400s,
less wrong.
I think. Sure. No one call us out on our history here.
I'm gonna say like 1600s.
Okay,
but
it could be a period of 300 years.
Yeah, we'll that's good enough.
Yeah, so when I heard the guitar come in, the electric guitar, that kind of surprised me. But if that's all we have to say about that track, let's go on to the next one. Mm-hmm. White Winter Hymnal.
This song is spectacular. I really like this song. The opening vocals are really attention grabbing, and there's this little bit of sort of fairy tale imagery going on. There's the red scarves and the pack as like a wolves to be like Little Red Riding Hood. There's their heads falling off from taking off the scarves is also reminiscent of a story I heard in grade school. Not sure. I think it was a Grimm Brothers fairy tale. I can't recall which one though. But that was really interesting, and just the imagery is really really well put in this song.
I really like this song, but one of the lyrics in this whole album, I think, are deceptively simple. And when you get into it and start trying to find the meaning, I find that for a lot of these songs, it's hard. The meaning is there, but it's intentionally vague, and you have to dig for it. And I found that fun in this album, trying to figure out what they were talking about. I didn't actually pick up on any of that stuff. This song remained a mystery to me all the way through.
I don't think that a lot of their lyrics, this one is pretty specific, but a lot of their lyrics feel like it's more just trying to give an image rather than tell an exact story, or it's trying to give other people's general stories. But this one in particular, I was slightly, I listened to it, I didn't notice anything about it. Then I listened to it again, and I looked up some of the lyrics, and is this talking about a wolf killing a young child? Like, because that's what I got from it.
I couldn't figure it out.
They actually don't at all reference wolves. They say packs and
all
reference
swallowed
coats.
in their coats.
Yes. So, it's interesting. The person referenced, Michael, clearly does die, but they don't specify an age or cause of death. I thought it was on a second listen through. Something I actually thought of was they reference a specific color of the scarf, the red scarf, and they mention everyone's in a coat, like that they're all matching. I got the sense that maybe this was referring to like some sort of gang violence that the guy may have experienced.
Maybe
Like maybe he lost
could
a
make sense.
family member, and that's what it's referring to.
so.
But
Before-
he was following the pack, so is he a member of this gang? And then
I think Michael was the one that was following the pack, and he's the one who ends up dying.
But then that's a perspective change because it says I was following,
following
the pack, and then
Oh,
it says
yeah.
Michael, you would fall and turn the.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay,
So-
maybe.
I got a couple things. I thought it could be either a wolf or like some sort of killer. And the way I get it is following the pack all swallowed in their coats and the red scarves. I'm thinking it's like a bunch of kids playing in the winter snow and forest. And the reason I say that is because when you get to the end, it says, Michael, you would fall and turn the white snow red as strawberries in summertime. Meeting Michael, some kid maybe with this pack, maybe it's a group of kids and just he's pointing out Michael, I don't know why, gets killed by something and obviously bleeds all over the snow, turning it red as strawberries. Mm-hmm. So it could be some sort of killer or some sort of violence, but I get wolves because a wolf would tear somebody up and turn the snow red.
Yeah,
That's what I got.
Yeah, it does say specifically the what causes the snow to turn red was the removal of the scarf, the head falling off because it's attached by the scarf.
Well,
Interesting.
that's.
Maybe
I
it's
didn't
not-
make that connection.
I didn't get that either.
Yeah, I think that's two separate things. I think the pack. I don't know if Michael's part of the pack. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's one verse repeated 3 times, but we can talk about it like this and try and get to the meaning.
Yeah.
The scarves of red were tied around the pack's throat.
Yeah.
But it never specifically
to keep their heads
specifically
on?
states.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
But it doesn't say his head comes off. It just
All right,
says he
that's fair,
falls and
yeah.
it turns the snow red.
The lyrics are kind of still a mystery to me, but as far as musicality goes, I thought this was a good one too because the music is is the focus for part of it, but then it does shift to the lyrics again and the vocals, and they're consciously, it's not accidental, it's not a recording error, they're consciously moving the decibels of people's vocals in and out to try to create an effect. They could have just put straight vocals and layered them how you're supposed to, but they chose to do it this way, which is interesting. And also their acapella at the end was just beautiful on the song.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they do acapella so well
It
all
was done
throughout
well.
this album.
Yeah.
For sure.
I feel like one thing I thought when I first started the song was, on my first listen through, it was bright and cheery, I thought. And I had trouble. My first listen through, I didn't want to look at the lyrics. I wanted to see if I could figure out what they were saying without it. But yeah,
It's hard.
some of the mixing makes it to where the lyrics aren't the focus, and it makes it tough to figure it out. So I did open up lyrics for this.
They also
But,
draw their words a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They stretch
So
them.
I didn't realize how dark what they were talking about in the song was until my first listen to the third verse when they repeated the last time.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is a bright and cheery song. Then you realize they're talking about someone falling and bleeding into the snow.
Yeah.
Irony.
They really do that a lot throughout this album, and it's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that said,
one.
let's move on to the next song, Ragged Wood.
The instrumentation is really, really upbeat, like more so than anything that has been on the album at this point.
For the first part, anyway.
Yes, for sure. It does wind down, and let me just look over my notes really quick.
While you're looking over your notes, I'm going to say, yeah, it's very upbeat, and it's less like folk music and more like a rock song. Not like a heavy
noticed-
rock, but like
I agree
a
with
light
that.
rock.
Yeah.
like alternative rock.
Like
Definitely.
yeah, like late early 2000s alt rock, you know,
Yeah.
when that was the most popular thing. That's what this song reminded me of at the start.
Yeah. It feels a lot like a sort of springtime innocent love. I feel like I can
Wow.
really get the sense of that in the song. But the lyrics are kind of sad. Not really dark, but
Yeah. It's
The-
like a love, and it's unrequited, you
Exactly.
find out as it goes on.
I didn't get the lyrics. Like I even after looking them up, I was a little dense with it. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, they just didn't stand out to me as much, except for a part at the very end where he says, "Tell me anything you want, any old lie will do." And for some reason, that kind of hit me, and I was like, "That's a pretty sad. That's like
Yeah.
a desperate love. That's like
Exactly.
like I would prefer you to lie to me rather than just not talk to me," which is sad because we've all kind of been there before.
Yeah, he starts off almost hopeful that he can get this love back, because it says, like, you have been gone too long, so it's like a relationship that's already ended, but he hasn't
He's not done.
recovered. Yeah, he still wants to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And then as it goes on, especially at around 2:45 when the beat slows down, he realizes that this isn't working out, and he gets more desperate.
yeah, the desperation on this track is palpable at the end. It's
Yeah.
really, really well conveyed.
Okay.
One thing to add is this album uses a lot of proper nouns, and I don't know if
Like
listening
who these
to them.
people are.
Yeah, I don't know what Behringer Hill is. He says, "Lie to me if you will," at the top of Behringer Hill. I don't know what that is. I don't know if I'm missing
Do you
something,
think it's just
or if
around
he's
where
just
they were?
trying to be more specific and make it feel like this is real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I've heard of that place. I think I heard of it in school, but that was, years ago. So I believe it is a real place, but I don't know what the I think it's a important landmark for geologists. There's a lot of different, like over 40 different minerals that were discovered there.
That's a weird place to meet.
Yeah, I don't
I don't-
understand that how that's relevant to the song in any way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's like layers there that I just can't penetrate.
I have
Yeah.
two ideas about that. Either they're trying to be specific to talk to specific people. Like they're actually referencing real people that they want to hear this music. Or they're kind of okay, there's three. Or they're doing it to just add a level of detail. Or they're kind of not to be rude, but being those people who just throw in facts to make them seem smarter. It's almost like they're throwing in specific places and names to make it feel more authentic. And not in a bad way, but just like maybe they're just trying to paint a better picture by giving these characters names and giving these places,
Yeah.
actual locations. Especially if you're from there. If you know what Behringer Hill is or whatever and you're by there, you're like, oh, hey, shout out to me kind of thing.
I feel like it was more purposeful than just because they don't have any superlative lyrics. I don't feel like in this song, all of them are handpicked.
It would
For
be a
a
little
reason?
backwards to do that then, yeah.
Yeah, because they have so few lyrics.
I
Yeah.
just wish I knew why.
Yeah, I'm more inclined to believe that it's there for a reason. I just can't parse it myself.
And it makes me think I'm missing like references to maybe literature or something like that.
Yeah.
Could be.
With
Um,
Michael.
like,
Was that picked randomly in the last song?
The first song on the album, Sun It Rises, it reminded me of a lot. It's probably inspired by a poem by who was it? A poem by John Donne or Donne, I forget how it's pronounced, by the same title, I believe, and it's about not wanting the sun to rise because he's in bed with his lover and he doesn't want to wake up and leave her. So I guarantee there's more literature references I'm just not picking up throughout the album.
We need to read more books. We're over here listening to music. We need to read a book a week.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
All right,
next song.
moving on to the next one. It's Tiger Mountain Peasant Song.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't know if you guys got this. This song is about a dude who murdered someone, and he regrets it. He over the song, he gets more and more regretful. At the beginning, the wanderers that were coming into town from their search is what I picked up from that. They were searching for the body.
I didn't get that at all. Is this like factual, or is this like
your interpretation?
I mean, it's interpretation.
Okay, I just didn't know if you like looked it up and.
No, I didn't want to look up anything.
Neither did I.
Yeah.
I didn't get that. I mean,
can I say my interpretation?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm not entirely confident about it because some of the verses don't really fit with this interpretation. But the best thing I could come up with was it's about how war takes advantage of the people who fight it, you know? Like, it's a peasant fight. Because it says, to banner fair, which could be like the bannermen in a war, you know? They go graceful in the morning light to banner fair, to follow you softly in the cold mountain air. And then it describes them going to their grave. So I feel like that was the best thing I could come up with for an interpretation of the song.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so I'm trying to think what was the. I think during verse 3 maybe is what gave me the impression that I got from it.
Yeah, that was the one. That verse I couldn't fit into my interpretation. I tried, I couldn't figure it out. What was yours of that third verse? The dear shadow alive and well, how can the body die?
No, the third verse. Okay, depending on where you look, the third verse is into town one morning. I went staggering through premonitions of my death. I don't see anybody that dear to me. And I'm guessing what TJ is meaning here is like going into town thinking about the murders, I would think is what you're talking about.
Yeah, well,
I'm not sure though.
I think it's specifically a murder of someone close to them, and it's only one that they've ever done. Because they do say specifically Jesse later on. During the outro, they say specifically Jesse, which I think is an intentionally vague name because it's unisex. So I think there is a relationship there, but they aren't specific about it on purpose.
Jesse, I don't know what I've done. I'm turning myself into a demon. I guess I could see that. Mine was a lot more simple. I thought they were just dying thoughts of somebody who's just, they're old, they're dying, or they have cancer or something of the sort. And I thought that it was just this person looking at their shadow and coming to grips with mortality, saying, like, how can the body die? They're looking at their shadow still there, and they're like, how can things move on without me? And I know not in a selfish way, but, we all kind of wonder what happens after death. And I thought that that's what this was. And I couldn't figure out the part referencing turning themselves into a demon. If I was stretching it, I would say something like, killing somebody or selling their soul to some degree, but I didn't get any more evidence to support that one. So I just thought it was about mortality.
I think this is really interesting that all of us got very different interpretations from...
Yeah. The lyrics definitely push that.
Yeah. I really like their lyricism in this whole album.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's super vague.
Listening to your description, I think I agree with yours. I think that makes more sense in my...
Scaffold?
Scaffold.
Yeah, I agree too.
Looking over the lyrics, it makes sense. Because I had similar elements in my interpretation, like this man was fighting in a war and he realized he was killing these people for nothing, so he's turning himself into a demon by killing people he has no personal issue with, really. But I think yours is more straightforward and makes sense.
Okay,
right, well,
moving on to Quiet Houses.
All right, this track is another really upbeat one, but the lyrics are light, but they're all just, brooding words like the darkness and it's weird. They aren't even said in a sort of harrowing way either. They're just, lay me down and darkening and, in this really happy song. It's
I think it's the way I interpreted this song was it's about a funeral, and it's like White Winter Hymnal when they juxtaposed the music with the vocals, with the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
But I think lay me down is the person dying, like lay me down to rest.
Yeah.
And then the darkening is when he's in his coffin. Come to me is the funeral, when everyone gathers around him to remember him. And then lay me down is when he gets lowered into his grave.
I can definitely see that.
I didn't even think about the lyrics here, and I could see that. I felt like the lyrics were, even though they intentionally placed them in most of the album, I thought this one were more of just trying to describe a setting, even in the most simplistic way, because honestly, the lyrics aren't the focal here.
No,
Definitely not.
The focal is the instrumentation, and I love that the guitar, there was 2 sets of guitars, might have been the same one, but it was panned from left to right, and there was 2 separate ones, like having a conversation, while the lyrics were set dead in the middle, kind of as like a loop. The lyrics were looped because it was the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
And this is the first time so far we hear a prominent piano. Unless I missed it before, there was a piano here, which was the first time we hear it, and there's also jingle bells in the background. So it feels like at this point, whenever they recorded it, they decided, let's throw in something more than a couple of guitars here and our vocals. And they really kind of spiced it up a little bit.
Yeah, speaking of spiced it up, that breakdown during the song is incredible. I really liked the breakdown.
What time is that?
It's towards the end.
Yeah. Oh, it's right at like the 2-minute 20 mark. Yeah, it's just instruments having fun everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That was great. I love this song.
And back to the piano real quick. I think that fits with the funeral theme. It's kind of what made me first think of it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I don't know why I make that association in my mind, but I do.
No, I know exactly what you mean. That's one of the prominent, like, if there's live music at a funeral, which is a weird concept in and of itself, it's usually a piano. Because it's got that sort of somber tone, and it can be played all on its own as a solitary entity.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, moving on from that song, the next song is He Doesn't Know Why. And this was one of the standouts to me because...
Go ahead.
Like I said, one of the things I liked most about this album was digging into the lyrics and trying to find the meaning. And this song, when it clicked for me, it really made sense. Because my interpretation of this song is that it's about a family member of a drug addict. And he feels helpless and he's frustrated looking at his family member, sibling, or what have you, going through this and knowing he can't really do anything to help him.
I'm pretty sure that this is his actual brother he's referring to, because he refers to him as Sean in this song, and he refers to his brother Sean in another song later in the album. So I'm pretty sure this is a really personal track for them, and seeing his brother homeless and broken and not being able to do anything about it it's sad. This song is incredibly sad. With all the dark themes going on throughout this album, this one it's just so poignant because it's so real.
It's one of the darkest ones, and I didn't realize it was his brother, but when you say that, and I just looked right now, it does seem like that's the consensus. This is his brother he's talking about.
I think it specifically says brother.
He does, but when people say,
they say that
brother,
at other points in the album without specifically meaning brother, I think.
I think so too. I didn't get it was his actual one, but I guess it is. As far as the lyrics go, I thought it was him talking about a poor homeless man, but now I see it's his brother. Maybe through drugs, but maybe just poor and homeless. And I thought maybe even an old vet.
The
maybe?
thing that makes me think that it's drugs, a drug addict, is when he says, "See your rugged hands and a silver knife, $20 that you in your hand that you hold so tight." I think the silver knife is a needle for like heroin, and then he's holding on to what little money he has so that he can get more.
I
You know
took
what
that
I
in a
mean?
total different way.
Yeah, I thought he got that $20 from mugging someone.
That's what I got too. The knife was
Oh.
a weapon used to steal somebody's $20.
Yeah.
So this guy's poor and homeless, I guess his brother or whatever, and he's mugging somebody and stealing their money, and that's why he's saying there's nothing I can do, there's nothing I can say, because that's just the type of guy he is at this
But-
point.
I feel like he says, "You will try to do what you did before, pull the wool over your eyes for a week or more." I think that's him relapsing. He's
Yeah.
trying to
I can
pull
see
the
that.
wool over his eyes with drugs, like distract
stealing the
himself
money for
from what
drugs.
his life is.
Yeah, I think Johnny, your interpretation is spot on for what I got from it too.
Yeah. And then he says, "Let your family take you back to your original mind." He's pleading with his brother, "Please let us help you."
Exactly.
Then
That was
he
the saddest part
realizes
for me.
there's
Yeah.
nothing I can do, and it's like,
It's
When he
so-
says there's nothing I can do, it's like, ah, man,
it's so desperate.
it hurts.
He
Yeah.
pleads like with all his heart.
and I really like this because there's a lot of songs about drug addiction, but I feel like so few take this point of view. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Of
it
the
really-
outsider.
Yeah,
stuck out
the
to
ones
me.
that do take the outsider point of view are usually like condemning it, not just looking at the person through the drugs and wishing the best for them and wishing you could do something.
And all lyrics aside, though, I have to say I didn't like this song as a whole, which I might be disagreed with here on, because I felt like the flow and the sounds were kind of offbeat, but the lyrics were so deep that, I mean, I forgave it. There's some lyrical songs on anything where I'm like, I don't like the instrumentation here, but I like the meaning. I didn't like the song as a whole.
I think
That's
the
crazy to
sort
me.
of offbeat, off kilter thing is on purpose.
Sure, yeah, definitely. I'm just not usually a fan. I like things a little more on beat. If they're intentionally off, it has to grow on me. Like, this is a song I would listen to again for sure. It's just, it felt weird listening the first time. But I love the piano at the end. That was out of nowhere too. Like, it just stops and then there's a piano.
Yeah, I was curious what that ending was in context, because
What do you mean the ending?
because
piano?
it stops, then you hear two voices, and then they keep playing the guitar for a few seconds more.
Yeah.
And
I felt like it was almost like supposed to be the outro song that they moved somewhere else. And the voices you hear are them saying it's recording, and they're like, okay, yeah, we're going, and they're like, yeah, we're recording. Just kind of like them having fun in the studio, probably, like left over. That's why I thought it was like an outro. It just seemed kind of strange, Maybe it wasn't planned.
No,
I-
I think that's there on purpose. I think after such a soul crushing track, they wanted to kind of lighten the mood a bit before moving on with the album.
The next song's dark too, though. At least to me.
yeah, I agree with that.
Heard
Yeah.
them. So I guess good
It
transition.
definitely is.
It's a good transition into our next topic, which is heard them stirring.
Yeah.
Which, man, that's an ominous and chilling beat.
Oh,
It sticks out though on the album.
Yeah.
I want to hear how everyone else interpreted it before I go ahead and talk about it.
I mostly listen to lyrical music, so I have trouble interpreting stuff like this. I listened to it a lot of times and tried to find the specific meaning, because I feel like it definitely does have one. I just couldn't seem to find it. But I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, as far as meaning, I have a hard time without lyrics. I don't know if songs necessarily have meaning without lyrics. Not in a way of like they didn't create it without lyrics. I'm saying I don't feel like there's any ever right or wrong unless you ask the artist. So I didn't put any meaning to this myself. I didn't find any. But I will say it was one of the most notable songs on the entire album. The bass, maybe it's a guitar, but whatever, it's like a heartbeat. And the no lyrics are perfect for this track. And when I got a minute in, I'm like, if they add lyrics here, it's gonna ruin the song. And they didn't throughout the entire thing. And I was like, thank you for not adding them on this one song. My only gripe is it faded out slowly, and I would have liked if it just dropped off. Like, it would have felt like more dark if it just dropped. But the slow fade out kind of like it killed the darkness for me. But not in a big way. It's just a minor gripe.
I think that's on purpose, though.
I'm sure everything's on purpose, I'm sure. I mean, that's why they do it.
Johnny, were you going to say something?
I was going to say that I feel like that was one of the things I do think I could find meaning in, was the slow fade out at the end. Because if you look at the name of the track, Heard Them Stirring, I think the voices you hear, because there's like melodic vocals in the background, not words, but then they fade out, and I think that's them, and they're like spirits of the dead. And then they fade out into the afterlife almost, I think.
So I don't think this track, it does start out very dark, I agree. But I don't feel like by the end of it is dark. So here is what's going on in this track, in my mind. From the beginning, I could tell this is, foreboding. Something bad is going to happen. And when the, leading up to and when the beat, gets way quiet, that is, there's, let's say, a hero. He's on a quest, and he's got his squire with him, and his bud backstabs him. He betrays him and leaves him for dead in a dark forest. And there's a little build up, and the song doesn't get as heavy, and building up and then fading out, that is the hero pulling through this sort of desperate struggle for life. And as it fades out, it's him leaving this forest. It's pulling through this betrayal and returning to whatever his goal may be. I feel like this was really great instrumental storytelling. I got this really clear sense on the first listen. I didn't have to give it any more attention than just one through, and I got this really clear picture in my head.
I don't know how you got that just from the instrumental.
I didn't get any of that, but I think his point is, and I respect it, is that if you open your mind to think about it enough, you kind of create your own story with it, even if that's not their intention. And maybe I'm wrong here, but that's what came to your head right away, right? That story just made sense to you when you heard it.
This feels like it's exactly the soundtrack that would be on in a movie where this happens. That's exactly what it feels like.
Awesome. For such a no lyrics track, we had a lot of opinions on it.
All right. Well, moving on from that one, the next song is Your Protector, which...
That flute was weird, haunting weird. It gave me kind of chills when I heard it.
That the flute is it starts out so subtle, but then you're like, what is that?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was a flute right away either. I was like, what is that instrument? It took a while.
Yeah. And it really sticks out because it's the first time you hear any instrument like that really on the album.
It feels like they just add instrument after instrument, only in one song too, though. They'll take it out on the next song almost.
Yeah, a lot of folk will have a very wide instrument vocabulary, if you will, but they don't use all these instruments super often.
Can you imagine going to a live concert? They got to have a lot of instruments on stage.
Oh yeah.
Lyrically, what'd you think?
This was a challenging one for me to interpret because, like with other songs, there were parts that fit with my interpretation, but then other parts I couldn't figure out what they were saying. But the way I interpreted the song was mostly shaped by one verse from it, but I think it was a father dying and thinking about his life. And then later on in the song, he talks to his family. He says, to his son, tell your brother to be good, tell your sister not to go, tell your mother not to wait, and then tell your father, I interpreted as
Tell
God,
me.
that I was good.
Oh. See, I
So
almost
that-
got that. You lost me right there.
Really? What was your interpretation of that last line then?
I agree with the
I was
father part, but when he's saying tell your father I was good, I was thinking he was like, hey, reassure me that I did a good job.
Okay.
Or, but
That
that's
makes
if
sense.
I take the, like, this is supposed to be a father talking. I also thought it might be a dying soldier trying to tell his last, like, thoughts. There's a lot of death on this album.
good. Yeah, there's.
I thought this might be like a soldier, a dying soldier, trying to just speak his last thoughts, or to his family, or a wife or girlfriend or something, and just saying, tell everybody back home for me, that I'm okay, or, that I'll miss them. And the protector being a soldier is someone who's supposed to protect us. So maybe it's not an actual soldier, but maybe it is, depending on when this is supposed to be taking place.
That would make sense with the "Would you wait for me" line, because
that's a
he's
big
saying
part of
like
it.
to his lover, like, "Would you wait for me while I'm off?"
That was a big part of it. And also the "you run with the devil," for me, and the whole time he's talking is an I. He's like, I want you to do this. I want you to say this. But when he's saying you run with the devil, I felt like it was him saying, this is what I get. When you run with the devil, when you're doing all these things, this is how it ends. That's what I got from it.
Yeah. That's part of where my interpretation falls apart for me, is with the "Would you wait for me?" The other one, "Would wait for me," and "You run with the devil," because those are like really confrontational, and it feels I don't know who he's talking to there, and I can't figure it out.
I really like these interpretations. It's interesting. I got something completely different out of it. From what I got, this kind of started with the very first line in the song. She left about a week ago, I believe is what it is.
Yeah, she left a week to Rome.
To Rome, right. And from what I interpreted it is his lover is untrustworthy. She leaves and he's just eagerly awaiting her return. He even says like, I don't care about what happened. Just keep your secrets to yourself. That I'm not too concerned with that.
I don't want to know.
Exactly. And he's just so fixated on her at the beginning of the song. But over the song, and I think the instrumentation kind of lends itself to this, he kind of realizes that, like, she's not good for him, and he really needs to, like, get out of it. And the only issue with this interpretation I have is, like, towards the end, it's like it's clearly him dying, and I don't know, like,
why he died.
Yeah, there's no connect there for me. But yeah, I feel like that's the clear interpretation I got from the first bit.
The lyrics in this song, all of the, like, for most of us, we're pretty set in it, and then just one little verse just throws it all off, and you're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I feel like this is what all these verses are like poetry to me.
Oh,
They're
for
like,
real.
There's so many ways to look into it, and it evokes a lot of emotion in almost every song.
Yeah,
And
it's I like the poetry comparison, because it's a lot of people compare poetry to a mirror, because the way you interpret it is reflective of yourself. And I feel like a lot of lyrics on this album do that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Art. What's the quote? Like, art is a mirror to reflect society on itself, or something like that. It's reflective of what was that? Do you know
I don't
it?
know what the.
Oh,
I know what you're referencing,
Yeah,
but I don't know
I've
what the
heard
quote
it.
is.
I always forget the quote. And not to compare this to a modern band exactly, but I will say, my girlfriend introduced me, like, listening to Fall Out Boy. Problem I have, and I'm a big Linkin Park fan. The difference between the two for me is when I listen to Fall Out Boy, I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about here. And it's always kind of bothered me when I don't know what the lyrics are saying, because I don't like adding my own interpretation. I like it being very direct, like, this is what that's about. But I loved on this album, I loved it for the opposite reason. I love that like there was nothing direct about it for the most part. I mean, there were some parts that were pretty clearly, but we all got different interpretations for a reason. It was specific enough to give you an idea, a setting, a time, a place, generally what's happening, but it was also and a feeling, but it was also vague enough to let you just decide what it means to you, at least. I love that.
Yeah.
It's done a great job opening my musical taste here.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, because I'm like you. I listen to a lot of lyrical and direct music that has something specific to say, that this stuff that's more just an evocation of ideas as opposed to just, this is what I think. It really opened my mind.
Especially with you and me both being like hip hop heads, like that's where we come from. Usually in hip hop and rap, they're like, this is what this is about. There's no other meaning to it. Like, this is it. But here, it's just, it's like a painting again. You can interpret a painting how you want, and the album art reflects that, just like all these songs do.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm ecstatic to hear this. I'm really glad that you guys ended up liking the album, at least as far as I know, as much as I do. But before we get caught up too much in talking about the album as a whole, let's go ahead and move on to the next song.
After I just praised the album, I've got to say this is a song I hated on it. It ranges from like to love on this album, but this is the one song that I just can't stand. I would skip it every time.
Really?
Yep, I would.
Yeah. This one was weak to me. I listened to it a lot because I don't know if I'm just missing something, but it was my least favorite on the album, and it's just almost dull to me.
It's kind of forgettable and like a little tiring to listen to for me. And the lyrics, I was like, what are you talking? Like, it wasn't even like I can interpret this. I think it's just talking about a bird, right? Like, am I the only one who got that? It's just about a bird?
I got an interpretation. We'll get to that.
I figured you would because you've heard this album before. You know, maybe, I don't know, but I tried to find interpretations, but I could only interpret a single verse at a time. I could never find an interpretation that worked for more than one verse.
So, first of all, I really like the instrumentation on how it feels. It feels like a nice warm summer air, but with like a little undertone that's somber.
Okay, I didn't pick up on the summer air so much, but I noticed it felt sad and distant.
This album was just sad in general.
Yeah, for sure. It has its nice sprinkling of upbeat songs, but none of them are happy.
Then just to tear you back down.
But what I got from this song is that the hummingbird is a person that he had a relationship with, and I feel like relationships are a really prominent motif on this album, but the relationship didn't end up working out, but he specifically says that he doesn't blame her. The kids laughing, I interpreted as like them, like maybe this was in grade school or something. They're spreading rumors about these two and their relationship, and he doesn't listen to them, and he tells her not to. My one issue is at the beginning of the song, the meadowlark feels like it's being referred to as someone who actually like is a good good to be in a relationship with, but later on it seems like they're referred to as literally just the bird visiting the hummingbird, the ex significant other. So I don't know what to do with the meadowlark in this song, but yeah.
I think you got a lot more out of that than we did.
When you say that, I don't know if I can make that stick. That interpretation stick for me.
I just can't do it. And I'm glad that you found meaning in it for sure. I just can't figure that part out. Like, that's just over my head.
All right, that's fair. I don't think this definitely wasn't a strong track on the album. I don't know if it was the worst per se. But yeah, it definitely is one of the weaker tracks.
I probably wouldn't skip it if I was going through the album, though. Considering the album's so short, I'd probably let it play. But like, I wouldn't go pick it.
Yeah.
All right, well, speaking of the album, let's move on. The penultimate song, Blue Ridge Mountains.
I love this song. It's such a good song.
All right. So first thing I want to point out, this directly refers to Sean, the brother from earlier. And I interpret this as
Drug addict one?
Wow.
yeah. I interpret this as before he got into his sort of slump, his drugs, because he's just happy. He's like, heard you missed your flight transfer. You're
Come
always
hang out with me.
Yeah, you're always welcome over here. We can go hang out at the cabin Grandpa built.
I got the
Alright.
brother part. I didn't realize this was the same person, though, which, if it is, it gives more context for sure.
Yeah. I think they referred to Sean in both songs, which is what I was listening to
it's
this
the same name.
again.
It is, yeah, you're right.
I was like, whoa, that is really cool that they connected it like that.
It's spelled the same, too.
So you just shattered my entire interpretation of this song, dude. It fell apart. Now it gets weird when I say my interpretation.
Oh, I really
wanna
want to
hear.
hear what it was
Okay.
and what was the pin that popped your bubble.
Well, I think that'll be pretty obvious right at the start. I
Alright.
think this was a song about I thought this was a song about homosexuality.
Okay,
they-
I can see that, though.
Yeah, they're running away together to go to a cabin. They want to leave behind green-eyed lookalikes. That way no one knows they're together and away. And then Terrible Am I Child, even if you don't mind, sounds to me like everyone around them condemns them for being gay, but they don't mind, those two. And they're struggling with, are we terrible for this? And then then this is the only song in the album where they reference modern times, where they specifically date it as it can only be since
Well,
airplanes in Tennessee. You know?
okay.
Oh, yeah,
that's
that's
fair.
true.
I was going
There
to
you
say
go.
that in the earlier song where Sean was referenced, they talk about dollars. They say $20 specifically.
Yeah, but
But
that
that
could be
could've
more
been
just a
anything.
general term for currency.
Yeah.
yeah,
know.
okay, that's fair.
No,
but-
but the plane definitely puts it in some, what,
Yeah.
50s, 60s is when planes first came out, right?
100%,
Yeah, exactly.
It definitely is more modern.
But then I feel like that was to show that view is backwards and wrong and old-fashioned, that homosexuality isn't okay.
Yeah.
But
If you stated that as
Then-
a fact to me, I would have probably gone along with it.
But then you say brother, and yeah, there was the our good grandfather line that threw me off, and then he calls him brother several times. But I was okay with just writing that off as like a way of making brother can be general,
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be specifically brother.
For sure.
But the grandfather line was harder to cope with.
They're both
But-
related, but they're also gay
It
together.
seemed to
the plot twist.
yeah, exactly. Now, it seemed to make sense to me, but then you
This song was
throw the
wonderful.
brother
though.
line, same name and everything, that kind of,
Lyrics aside, this
Bye-bye.
song was just so good.
Oh yeah.
Did you have more to say about the lyrics?
Just one thing. I couldn't extrapolate anything from the chorus except that it's describing the scene of this cabin in the woods in winter. I don't know if there's more relevance. There probably is, but I just couldn't. It was the one roadblock in this entire album for me.
I'm
my
sorry,
thing
I didn't
with
have a response to that.
with the brother, so no one gets worried, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to reinterpret this song.
While you're doing
No.
that, I'm just gonna say
Go ahead.
the crescendos and dropouts are beautiful, and they don't just do it in like. Okay, so songs will do that, but they'll level and equalize the whole track so that it's all the same loudness. It just feels different. This one, depending on what you're listening to, speakers or headphones, you can hear it actually get loud. It gets loud as hell. there's like a 3-minute mark where some drums kick in, which I don't think we've heard drums up until this point. It's like,
oh no, there's definitely drums. They just keep them very low in the mix.
That's probably
Don't
what
really
like.
focus
They
on
never
them.
stuck out to me, but here it's like, you know, In the Air Tonight, where it goes dun 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 dun, like it's like that at like 3 minutes. And this is the song on the album that really made it like, I really like this album. I'm going to listen to it again and again and again. It just was a beautiful mix of everything.
Yeah. I feel like these two songs, especially because there is that conjunction, I feel like they just stick out so much more because I interpret them as modern day and very real. And Johnny, about your reinterpretation, something I thought was interesting was, I believe, because this comes after him saying he can't recognize his brother anymore and he's just super broken about it. I feel like this is like looking back with rose-tinted glasses and, oh, what if I had done this? What if I...
So you think it's better as it later on the track rather than if it were put before?
Yes.
Do you think it'd be better if they were next to each other?
No, I really like that there's some space, because then when this hits you, and you realize that they're connected, it's really like crazy. It's
like a cameo
gripping.
appearance in like a show or something. You're like, oh, cool, a cameo from this person. And to hear it, I mean, I didn't get that. I knew that this was his brother, but I didn't know the other song was his brother. So to know that now, like, it's very cool that he mentions them twice on here. And in two different lights. One of them is not looking down on him, but also like not pinning him in the best light. And this one is like, hey, I actually want to hang out with you here, which makes it a happier track than the other one for sure.
Yeah, I feel like this is the happiest the album gets, because it is looking back and what if, and this would have been great. So it is sad when you think about it, but the track itself doesn't have any
Nothing dark at all.
Yeah, it's just a good happy song.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to the next song. With that said, Oliver James, the closing track.
Oh boy, I love this track, especially as a closing track.
I agree with that.
Oh,
It starts with the acapella, and then in this song, it closes with acapella, but it feels entirely different.
Yeah, ooh.
The
Really
acapella at the beginning
good
was
parallel.
very clean, and it was layered, but it was clean. The acapella here sounds like it's one voice with a lot of reverb added onto it, like he's almost singing in a church by himself.
Yep.
But at the beginning, it
reverb
sounds like
was-
several people.
The reverb, I felt like, was all over this song, and when Scaffa was talking earlier about how they recorded this in not the best conditions, that made sense to me, because you could add the reverb. Reverb can be added like that. I felt like it was painfully obvious that the reverb was artificial throughout the whole album. My first listen through. On the other listen throughs, I got acclimated to it, and it didn't stick out so bad to me. It just
It can also
became
cover up bad
part of it.
recording.
Yeah, exactly. So I felt like that just made sense.
Yeah. I do, even though the reverb is, clearly artificial and not mixed the best, I do like how it makes this entire track feel kind of distant,
Yeah.
because the way, from what I see from this, Oliver James drowns, and I'm guessing he's with someone, an in-law or a lover or someone they know that isn't direct family, and he is there for this whole traumatic event as kind of a third party, and so he's got that distance between him and all these events that are just terrible. And it's got I really like it as a closing track because it is a remorseful send-off, and just they reference the feeling of that being emptier than before this happened. I feel like that's a good way to kind of close out the album, because it is so dark. It's sad. The entire album.
So this is a sad song to you.
Yeah.
I got the exact opposite. I'll let Johnny go
Really?
first.
Interesting.
Well, I want to hear what you said because I didn't have much interpretation of this track.
So I am really set in my interpretation of this. I believe wholeheartedly this is, and I might be very wrong, it's about a kid named Oliver James who was abandoned in a river. They put him in a cradle, threw him down the river. They didn't want the kid, whoever didn't want the kid. And this person is on the way, it says on the way to your brother's house in Valley Deer, and it might be you as in talking to a specific person. They're walking down the riverbank, and they see this kid floating in the river in a cradle, and they are like, oh my God. So they pick up the kid, and they bring it back to whoever's house, like their family. It's saying, that's what the chorus is, Oliver James washed in the rain no longer. So the rain would be the river, and maybe it's raining out, and he's floating down the river. They bring him back, and then they say, on the kitchen table that your grandfather did make, this is an adopted kid. They're going to raise this kid that they found in the river, and they're, changing him on the table, and they're teaching him about an innocent, anxious mother an innocent and anxious mother full of anxious love. It's a mother who, maybe they have kids of their own, but they get to raise another one now. And walk with me down Ruby Beach and through the valley floor. That's just the kid learning how to walk and walking with his newfound family. To me, it was a happy track because with that interpretation, these people saved a child floating in the river. And I could be 100% off here, but that's what I got from it.
How do you fit in the line about leaving emptier than they were?
At the bottom?
Yeah.
Let me find out what you're talking about.
Back we go to your brother's house.
Back we go to your brother's house. Emptier, my dear, the sound of ancient voices ringing soft upon your ear. I don't exactly fit that in, but I think... Okay, so it starts off with them walking to their brother's house, whoever the brother is. And in my interpretation, they find the kid while walking there. And so they never make it to their brother's house. They go back and they start raising the kid, whatever. Maybe it's a long walk. Going back emptier, meaning when they were there, they picked up this kid. Now they're full. They have this kid with them. That's their carry. That's their package. Their what they're carrying. So they're now finally going to go back to their brother's house. And it could even be the brother we're talking about earlier, but now they don't have this weight of a kid with them. And I know it sounds like, the weight of a kid. I'm just guessing that means, okay, now we're heading back there, after this time. That's just them going back.
I think it's interesting. They the reason I got the interpretation I did was because throughout the track, he makes it a point of saying, your brother, your grandfather. He's constantly saying... because everything is related to the person he's with.
Being Oliver James or being somebody else?
I feel like this entire track he is speaking to someone, like maybe a lover, and he's with her in their family's like cottage or whatever, and just for a vacation, maybe visiting to meet the family, something like that. And while he's there, this child drowns, and then they bring him back, and the anxious mother, I feel like they're like, he's gone, they know it, and they're just like trying to like,
I feel like that could fit either of your interpretations. That line, it says, you in your delicate way will slowly clean his face.
Yeah.
It could be like this person who died, it's like preparing the body, you know, after the death. So
we kind of overlap a little bit there.
Yeah, there's a bit of overlap, but it's just whether or not it's happy or sad.
What'd you get from it, Johnny? Happy or sad?
I felt like it was a longing track, more sad, more.
But not like sad as in a sad event, but more like as a...
Not sad as in a what?
Like a traumatic event, but sad as in like a sort of remorseful desire for something in the past. Is that what you mean?
Not really. I mean like almost mourning,
Yeah.
Like death is what this made me think of.
Oh, so like the same thing as every other song on the album?
Yeah. I think it might have been colored by that, listening to it in context with the album,
Yeah.
But it, like, I don't know how you can hear that at the end when it's just his voice a cappella and he's saying Oliver James washed in the rain no longer. That's just not happy to me. I don't know how you can hear that and think it's happy.
I don't think it's happy in the sense like, well, just like you hear instrumentation earlier where it sounds like a happy song but the lyrics are dark. I think it's kind of the other way where the lyrics are happy, saying Oliver James, if my interpretation is correct, Oliver James, this kid who's no longer drowning in the river, no longer washed in the water. It's a happy thing, but it's just said in a sad way. It's backwards, which, I mean, happens in other ways on the album. It just hardly ever happens in this form.
Interesting. I think with my interpretation, the part of the reason I'm so dedicated to it is because it's...
You like to be wrong?
Incorrect. You're just objectively wrong at all times. But disregarding that, the remorseful send-off is a great way to end an album because there's this little like emptiness when you finish an album. It's over. You've had this experience and it's done.
Very true.
And what really makes that poignant is the, like, however many measures of just silence before he says the chorus one last time. That's just, ooh, it gives me chills. It's so good.
Yeah.
All right.
I really like the song even though I couldn't make sense of the lyrics. I really liked it. Especially, like, when he starts drumming on the guitar.
Yeah. Oh,
I really like that part.
Yeah. Especially since it's not, like, a consistent beat.
Yeah.
It makes
feels intimate. It feels personal, like this is being performed specifically for you almost.
Exactly. And I feel like the reverb making it feel like this big empty room really lends itself to that.
Yeah, I agree with that. But
I think we spent enough time on that song.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so let's move on to overall thoughts, even though this mostly did come out while we were discussing the tracks. What were your overall thoughts on the album? Let's start with you, Scaffo.
Okay. This is incredibly emotionally charged throughout the entire experience. It is just a bit draining to listen to, not in a bad way at all, but it's just it evokes so much in me. It's a task. The upbeat instrumentation with the somber vocals or somber lyrics throughout is a nice way to keep this nice thematic through line, but still kind of get these peaks and valleys instrumentally that are important on an album. It never once felt long. It never felt stale. I was always invested, no matter how many times I listened to this. And I listened to this album a lot in the past week.
All right.
And the vocals are, of course, standouts. The vocals are incredible on this album.
All right. Well, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think it was taxing, but for me, the reason it was taxing was because I was like really digging and thinking hard about the lyrics, trying to find out what they meant, and that took energy, while listening to the album. But I think this was a great pick for this podcast because my first listen through, I got frustrated with it because I was trying so hard to figure it out. On my first listen through, I couldn't describe why I felt the way I did about songs. I knew which songs I liked, which songs I thought were weaker, but I couldn't figure it out. I felt like this really helped me get out of my musical bubble that I'm in and appreciate different music and learn to articulate why I appreciate that different music. I'm still not great at it with something like this, but I feel like I definitely got better at it just listening to it.
Yeah. The reason I ended up picking this album actually is because it's not only a really approachable album, instrumentally and lyrically, or yeah, I suppose lyrically, it's approachable, but it does have all kinds of depth, and it stays interesting, and it really showcases the strengths of indie folk, I think.
All right. Yeah. Well, I liked it as a whole. I will probably listen to it plenty of times more in the future. Maybe I'll even get something out of it that I didn't catch at all the first few times I listened to it. And I did listen to it a few times where it was almost on in the background, even if I wasn't doing anything else, where I was more just, listening to the music and sort of jamming out, I guess you could say, without thinking too much about it, just enjoying it. And I think that really helped grow my appreciation of the music, because every song is musically sound. I don't feel like there's any bad songs on the album.
I think that it wasn't actually taxing for me compared to you guys. I didn't have a hard time enjoying it at all. The hard part was the lyrics, but I listened through the first time. I got through about 4 songs and was like, I'm not going to even try to listen for the lyrics right now, because I just thought, normally I'll listen to it until I figure out the lyrics, but they were so covered by the other parts of the track and layered. I was like, I don't want to try to figure these out. I looked them up, and once I looked them up, it was much easier. But I love the album as a whole. There's only that one song, Meadowlarks, I think. Meadowlarks. That was the only song on there I didn't like. The rest of them, some of them I listened to more than others, but there were a few I loved. And this is definitely, it's a short album too. It's only 39 minutes, I believe, and 11 tracks.
Yep. And
there was one song that's 6 minutes. Other than that, all of them are like a 3, which is great. I mean, yeah, I would definitely listen to this album again. Great pick.
All right. Well, you started discussing your least favorite, so let's go straight to you for this. What were your 3 favorite tracks from the album and your least favorite?
Due to running a little bit long, I'm just going to list it. Favorite tracks, going to be Blue Ridge Mountains, probably my number 1. Number 2 would probably be Heard Them Stirring, great instrumental. And number 3, that one's a little harder. I think it would probably be Ragged Wood. It's a little more mainstream. Least favorite, definitely Meadowlarks. Yep, that's the one. There's so few songs on here. It's hard to pick bad ones, but Sun It Rises would probably be one of my least favorite. And then
Really?
Yeah. Well, there's only
need to
11
pick
though.
one.
yeah,
You
okay, only
need to
one?
pick one.
Oh,
least
cool. Then
favorite
I'm
song.
done.
3 favorites, one least
All right,
favorite.
cool.
but that was a ooh.
I didn't want to pick it. That's why I'm saying it's hard. But like, if I had to choose another, it would probably be that.
Luckily, you don't.
Luckily, I don't. We're gonna pretend that didn't happen.
All right, Johnny.
Well, my favorites are... there's no overlap with you on this one, Patricio. My favorite song was He Doesn't Know Why. That was my number 1. Then my next 2, no particular order. I just like both of these. White Winter Hymnal, which I thought was just fun juxtaposition. Fun instrumentals with dark lyrics, and I could really dig into them to try and find depth. And then Oliver James, which, even though I didn't really find the meaning I was looking for in the song, I still enjoyed the heck out of it.
And your least favorite
Was probably Meadowlarks.
Ooh,
yeah, that's
being rained
the only
on
one
here.
that sticks out to me.
If you don't choose
Meadowlarks.
it, DJ, you're wrong.
Okay, so my favorite songs were first White Winter Hymnal. It really has a great feeling to it, and it's just a treat to listen to. The second one would definitely be Oliver James. Really, really like that track as a closing track, especially. And the third one is kind of tied, because I like these songs like on their own, but together they're like so much more. That's He Doesn't Know Why and Blue Ridge Mountains.
Gotta pick one.
Well, I can't pick one. They're both.
Then pick a different song.
Pick something else.
They're so
3 songs, no
intrinsically
cop
tied.
outs.
Okay, we're just gonna agree it was Blue Ridge Mountain for him.
They're intrinsically tied together by Sean himself. I can't
Let's
separate them.
move forward,
Anyway.
Mr. Cop Out. What's your least favorite? You gonna pick two
Wow.
of those? You gonna pick two least favorites?
All right, so
Got him.
So, you might hate me for this, but my least favorite was probably Quiet Houses, actually.
Don't hate you for it. You're wrong, but
Yeah, that one I can understand why that might be your least
Yeah,
favorite.
second would be Metal Larks, though. I do agree that it's a weaker track.
cool.
All right. Well,
That
with
was
that
Fleet
said,
Foxes, right?
yeah, that was Fleet Foxes' self-titled album. So now, Patricio, it's your turn to pick the album of the week.
Okay.
Rounding out the first cycle for MP3Cast. What are we listening to?
We're going to be listening to Post Traumatic EP by Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park. And I'm going to give some background really quickly so you know going into it. This is his first solo album, and it comes about a year after the lead singer of Linkin Park, Chester Bennington, killed himself. And he was friends with him, good 20-something years, best friends. So this is an album not dedicated to him, but born out of that tragedy. So it's going to be a fun one, I think.
All right. And this is the first new release we're listening to then, I guess, isn't it?
Indeed.
Yep, this came out mid-June, early June. So it's been like less than a month. So
Yeah.
Newest release.
All right. So we have that to look forward to next week. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time.